Welcome to the book of Genesis. I believe I mentioned in the last video, which would have been the 8th chapter of the Song of Solomon, that I can't remember exactly what I said, but I think I said I was going to go through the minor prophets and put Genesis together, stitch it together from videos I did about 15 years ago when YouTube would only allow 10-minute segments, and so it was all split up. I tried to do that, but was unsuccessful. The videos themselves were old and low resolution, a lot of pops, which are going pop, pop into the microphone, and then there was also a lot of ahs that I used in those days in speaking. So I just decided to go ahead and redo the whole book of Genesis, but I could use a lot of the notes and everything I did on the first videos 15 years ago, probably around 2007. So with that, we'll go into the book of Genesis. It begins, I'll read a little in the Greek, in archi, epis son o theos, ton uranon, ke tigin, idegi in eortos ke kataskevastos, ke skotos epano tis avisu. The creation. Chapter 1, Moses is attributed to having written this book. Now, of course, Moses wasn't alive at the creation, so where did he get the information? The information was probably handed down via the oral tradition of telling stories and so forth. Whether there was any writing that was written down that Moses received, I don't know if that was the case at all. I forgot I was going to look through the book of Genesis and to see if there was any mention of any writing or a Bible before the time of Moses. Well, there would have been cuneiform at the time of Abraham because he came from Mesopotamia, and then Joseph he was in Egypt, so hieroglyphics could have been used in the later part of the book of Genesis. But pre-flood, probably oral tradition, unless they wrote something on caves and stone or something that lasted through it. But it begins in archi. Archi is a interesting word, number 746, and it is the beginning. Now, the things mentioned in the first chapter before the creation were three things. The abyss is mentioned, water, and spirit. And then the first created things were light, and then heaven and earth at the same time, apparently. So 746, the beginning, we have the word monarch, the ark, a ruler. And number 746, here's our book English derivatives of the Greek New Testament, slightly worn, greatly worn. And if you open it up, it's number 746. It has right here archaeo, archaic, and monarch. Now, this book can be purchased on our bookstore, and leave it with that. So the beginning, it says in John 1:1, in the archi, the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So Jesus was the Word, because it mentions that in other places. So he was God, and he was in the beginning. John 8:25, the Jews said to him, "You, who are you?" And Jesus said to them, "I'm the source of whatever also I speak to you. Very good. And then in Revelation 1:8, it says, or Jesus says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, beginning and end, says the Lord God, the being one, and the one who was, and the one coming, the Almighty. And then in Revelation 3:14, it says, thus says the Amen, the trustworthy and true witness, Jesus, the source of the creation of God. So Jesus was the source of the creation. In the beginning, Jesus made the heaven and the earth. Now, this isn't the created part of it comes a few verses down, because it starts in verse 2 and says, but the earth was unseen and unready, and darkness was upon the abyss. So the earth was unseen. Was it even there? Not in the form that we know it, but darkness was upon the abyss, and so the abyss was some place that there was darkness. We could probably consider that maybe outer space where there is darkness. And Spirit of God bore upon the water. Now, what water was there? So apparently some type of water existed, and a Spirit of God bore upon it. There was no sun or moon, so we didn't have those yet. They're not coming down till, I think, the fourth day. But the water it's interesting because nowadays they're sending up spacecraft and to other planets, always looking for water and never finding it. But yet it's on the Earth with oceans. Now, how did it become on the Earth and not anywhere else that they have found? Everything else is just rock. And ice are certain planets, but that's not from water, it's from gases. And so in verse 3, it says, and God said, become light, and light became. First created thing was light. And there's no sun or moon, but light existed. And I've always been of the belief that the sun is just like a match. You strike it and it lights, but it only lights because of something that happens to this little stick that has an end that will light. To me, that's sort of what the sun is. It's something that God created light, and light existed, but it didn't hit anything to make it reflect to the earth yet. And God said, become light, and light became. And God beheld the phos. We have phosphorus. Theos is theology. We have the derivatives, a lot of derivatives here. Pneuma, with pneumatics. The abyss, transliteration. Geology. So you can go through and these orange highlighted numbers, and you'll see that they all appear in this book, and you can find out more about them, and you can find out how to pronounce the word. It's really a great book. I highly recommend it. Now it says in 4, and God beheld the phos, that it was good. And God, so that's the first thing that was, God sees it's good. And God parted between the light, the photic, and between the darkness. So this light parted in the darkness. However, this ethereal process happened way beyond our understanding, but this is what the Bible reflects. And God called the phos imeren, a day. We have ephemeral, comes from that. So he called it day. Now again, no sun or moon to differentiate it. And darkness he called night. Now, that's interesting, isn't it? Because you can have day and night without the sun, moon, and stars. And there became Espera, evening. We had Vespers, the Vesper service, the evening service in the Catholic Church, and the liturgy of other churches. And there became morning, Imera Mia, day 1, the first day. In verse 6, and God said, let there become stereoma in meso to idatos, a firmament. Stereoma, we have a stereo. You can find that number in our book. This firmament is in the midst of the water. Now, it's a firmament, something that's some type of a mass that was able to separate other masses of things. And let it be for parting between water and water. So we don't have any stars or the sun and the moon yet, but yet we have water. And we have something there that is parting between the water that God has made called the stereoma. And the stereoma is interesting in itself in that it says in Exodus 24:10, and they saw the place where the God of Israel stood, and the things under his feet were as a brickwork of sapphire, and as the form of firmament of the heaven in cleanliness, so some type of mass. And then in Ezekiel 1:22 to 25, it says, and the likeness above the head of the living creatures was as a firmament, as the vision of crystal. So now we see this mass that looks like crystal, and it's above some living creatures that were existing then, and being stretched out over their wings on top. And you can read verses 22 to 25 more on that. In Ezekiel 10:1, it says, and I beheld, and behold, upon the firmament above the head of the cherubim was a likeness of a throne of sapphire over them. So now we have this firmament, we have the cherubim, these beings, and above a throne. And the water is separated between the two, apparently, unless this water was the firmament, the water, and then the throne. So it was, the firmament was for parting between water and water. And then God made the firmament, and God parted between the water which was underneath the firmament and between the water above the firmament, again before the sun and the moon and the earth. It doesn't say the land yet, or the earth. And God called the firmament, or unknown, heaven. And God beheld that it was good. Heaven, we have the Uranus, the planet. Uranus is a planet in our solar system, as a derivative. And God beheld that it was good again. And there became Espera, and there became Proi, morning. Devtera imera, second day. Deutero is the second, like the Deuteronomy, the second law. Nomi is law. So still no sun or moon in the second day. And God said, let the water underneath the heaven come together into one gathering. So now we have this water below coming together somehow, and let the dry land appear. And all of a sudden now the dry land, so that would be, I would think, the earth. And it's xira. We have cirrhosis, a dryness. Synagogin, a synagogue, or a gathering. And it became so. And gathered together the water, either, hydro, derivative, the one underneath the heaven into its gatherings, and that would have been the heaven that we probably know. Or possibly not. It could be the water was there above something that held it before it hit the earth, and the dry land appeared. And God called the dry land Gin. So now we have the earth being called the gain. And the collections of the waters he called seas, thalassies, thalactic. And God beheld that it was good. So we now have some type of a form of the earth, and there's seas, so they're water. So the water underneath, and then there's a water up above, the firmament. And then God beheld it was good. And God said, and again, there have the seas. Then were there tides? Because the moon had not does not appear yet. So is this water just still without any waves and tides because of no moon? It's a possibility. And God said, let the earth grow. Geology is a derivative, pasturage of horticulture, of grass, spiron, a spire, sowing sperma, seed, according to it, a genos type. Type. We see in this vegetation now taking form. God said, let the earth grow pasturage of grass, sowing seed, according to type and according to likeness. Homeotita, homo, is a derivative. That should have been highlighted. Homogeneous. And the fruitful tree producing fruit, of which the seed of it is in it, according to type, upon the earth. And it became so. So now we have the vegetation, and the type, genos, comes basically is used by a man called Carl Linnaeus, a Swedish botanist who happens to be a Christian in the 1760s, who developed taxonomy, a classification of plants and animals. And this classification was started off with a domain, then the kingdom, a phylum, class, family, the genus, which is here as a genus, comes from this word, genos, and species. Does this remind you of your biology class? And he was before Darwin. There's more on him on Wikipedia, Carl Linnaeus. So now it became so. And the earth brought forth pasturage of grass, sowing seed according to type and according to likeness. And there's nothing it mentions about rain until the flood. So apparently some type of a, what do they call those, plant boxes that have I can't think of the name of it. They grow all kinds of things in these glass containers. So it's sort of like what the earth probably was, because we know the vegetation was all over the earth from fossils and giant animals that were eating them that are no longer around, but everything changed probably because of the flood. But there's no animals yet. It's just all pasturage. So how long did this exist before the animals came about? It could have been millions of years. There was no sun and moon, so there was no time. So people that have written books on the Bible and write up all kinds of things, a lot of false things, and people that don't know anything about the Bible read these things, and they think, well, this man said the earth was 3,000 years old because he's come up with some kind of a genealogy from the ages of the people that lived at the time. And it's just sort of wrong that a lot of these things have been written that are really not the case, that the Bible doesn't say. But so the earth brought forth the pasturage according to type and the fruitful tree. And there became evening and there became morning, the third day. Again, no sun, moon, or stars. We have the earth, but no animals, vegetation. Now, And God said, now where does God exist? Way beyond anything that we can understand. Can't even give a word and try to explain something that's unexplainable. But in infinite, past infinite, and infinite for us, for humans, there is no end. It's infinite. There is no beginning, and there is no end that we know of. We can send spacecrafts out to try to find them, but they can't. And I saw one thing about trying to explain infinite was said, if you had a house, and if you were 100 miles away, and somebody says, every day you can go halfway between where you're at now to the house, you would never get to the house, because if 100 miles away, halfway the next journey would be 50, and the next journey would be 25, and 12 and a half. And they just keep on going and going and going. Infinitely, you'll never get to the house. That's sort of where it's at, where God is past all of that understanding of man, and that's where God is. But yet it says, he said, let there be luminaries in the firmament of the heaven. And now the firmament was some type of a mass. So now we have this mass of stars, luminaries, and for giving light upon the earth. Now he has lit the sun, and the moon reflects the light, and so do all the stars. But yet God is way beyond that on the other side of the firmament, which could be other side of infinity. Firmament could be infinity. It's to part between the day and between the night. Now remember, at the beginning it said day and night, but now it parts it, separates. This is what separates, causes tides and things like that. Climate probably came into existence now with winds and all sorts of things that were in a basic climate of that time. 15, and let them be for giving light in the firmament of the heaven, so as to shine upon the earth. So this firmament is the cosmos, and in the firmament are all these objects, and then there's water and the abyss, so forth, so as to shine upon, and it became so. And God made the two great luminaries, theos, duo, two, epi, upon, the phosteres, phosphorus, comes from that, of light, megalus, mega, great, the great phostera for the archos, the beginnings of the day, that would be the sun, and the lesser phostera for the archos of the niktos, the nocturnal, of the night, the moon, and the stars, asteros. So now they are shining. Let them for giving a light so as to shine. And we have a shine, feigning. We have phenomenal, comes from that. And 17, and God put them in the firmament of the heaven. God put them there, so as to shine upon the gaze, the earth, and to begin the imeros, the day, and the niktos, and to part between the photos, the light, and between the skotos. And God beheld that it was good, and there became evening, and there became morning, the fourth day. So the sun, moon, and stars are now come into existence, vegetation, but no animals. Now, in verse 20, it says, and God said, let the waters bring forth erpeta, reptiles, psikon zoson, ke petina, petomena, epi tisgis. The water, the reptiles, alligators, crocodiles, and who knows what other kind of reptiles, dinosaurs, so forth, living souls. Herpes comes from that. It's a scaly problem with your skin, herpes, herpeta. And psychon, psychology, psycho, soul. Zoson, anything with zeta, omega, like a zoo, comes from some type of living thing. And petina, helicopter, the piter, the winged creatures of the petomena, flying, peta, upon, epi, tis geese, the earth, below the firmament of the heavens. So now we have that firmament, now below heaven that we know with the sun, moon, and stars, and then we're down below with different animals and flying creatures, and it became so. And God made the great Kiti, sea monsters. Kiti, at that time, when this was translated into Greek, was sea monsters. It wasn't a whale. A whale was a classification of Linnaeus' taxonomy that occurred way, way, way later in 1800s, where they made the Kiti whale cetacean from the word Kiti. But the whale, that like I say, is something that was made, that word was developed fairly late. But earlier it was a sea monster, and we see where Jonah was swallowed by a sea monster, whatever it was. And every soul of living creatures, of reptiles, which the waters brought forth according to their types, genus, and every feathered winged creature according to its type, and God beheld that it was good. And so the crocodiles and alligators were good, no killing. And God blessed them. So now this is the first place I can think of that God blessed. He blessed the animals way before man. He was saying, grow and multiply. Oxanastha, the oxa. We have an oxen, a hormone to promote growth. And plethenasthe, fill up, multiply. And plerosate, the waters in the sea. So now we have reproduction coming into place as far as animal reproduction. And let the winged creatures be multiplied upon the earth. And they, of course, laid eggs, and so did the reptiles. And there became evening, and there became morning, the fifth day. So now we have the the animals, and the vegetation, sun, moon, and star, and the land and the sea. And God said, let the earth bring forth a living soul according to type, four-footed, and there's a tetrapoda, four-footed. Tetra is four, and pod, a foot, a pod, and herpeta, and theoria, wild beasts of the earth according to type. Now, what was a wild beast? Later we have cattle, different word, different Greek word. What was the difference between a wild beast and cattle? Now, there wasn't any killing yet that I see, so somehow there's a differentiation between the two. Wild beasts may not have herded like the cattle did. And God made the wild beasts of the earth according to type, genus, and cattle. There's the cattle according to their type, and all the herpeta of the geese according to genos. And God said, we should make man according to our image and according to likeness. That's a very interesting sentence. Our image gives it a plural connotation. And some people look at this and say, well, that's the Trinity. And our image would be other created beings that man would be from, and according to the likeness somehow. So when we get to heaven, we'll find out, get to the New Jerusalem, we know that there are angels, and Jesus says we will be like the angels. So maybe that was the likeness. But whatever it was, now he is saying he's going to make man. Anthropon, anthropology comes from that. And let them control the fishes of the sea. Control, does that mean to kill? It doesn't say kill here. It just says control the fishes of the sea and the winged creatures of the heaven and the cattle and all the earth and all the erpeton, reptiles crawling upon the geese. And God made man. According to the image of God, he made him. Male and female, he made them. Now, as I mentioned, this is an overview, and later we'll get into where Adam and Eve are mentioned in a detailed relating this whole thing to different specifics that are missing here in the first chapter. And God blessed them, saying, grow and multiply, fill the earth and dominate it. Now, so reproduction has gone on, male and female. Male and female, he made them, and God made man, anthropon. But then did he not, when here it says male and female, is it talking about just the animals or man and woman? I believe man and woman, but grow and multiply, fill the earth and dominate it. So reproduction, and control the fishes of the sea. Controlling nothing there about kill. It's controlling, whatever that means. And the winged creatures of the heaven and all the cattle and all the earth and all the reptiles crawling upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given to you every grass fit for growing of seed which is upon the earth, and every tree which has in itself a fruit seed fit for sowing. So it will be for food. So the vegetation on the earth is the food. And to all the wild beasts of the earth, and to all the winged creatures of the heaven, and to every reptile crawling upon the earth, which has in itself psyche, soul of life. Zoes, soul, psychology, and zoology, life, the derivatives. Even every hortone, horticulture, chloron, chlorophyll, green, derivatives for food, and it became so. So all the animals now have green things, vegetation, for food, nothing about killing each other. And God beheld all as much as he made, and behold, it was exceedingly good. And there became evening, and there became morning, the sixth day. So God saw everything that he made was good. Apparently there was no killing, and everything was going fine. Vegetation was growing, animals, and now humans have appeared. It continues then in chapter 2, the completion of heaven and earth, and then later we'll go into the second discourse on the creation and in detail. Hope you'll join us in chapter 2, our next video seminar. And until then, God bless.